Another topic. Another topic. What's up, you guys? So, this topic today. My chair made hella noise, nigga. Like, it should be hella loud. But I got another topic today. This is the Daily Podcast, episode 4. Now, this episode is me talking about my experiences when it comes to writing a fantasy novel. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy it. So sit back, relax, get y'all some popcorn, you know, get you some good ass Doritos or some shit. Sit back. If you exercising, this is the perfect thing to watch. If you're exercising, if you at work and you feel lonely and you're tired of listening to music, you're tired of sneaking and having one of your ear pods in, and just listen to music, and you want to actually listen to a bunch of stories from a person, from a person who has a whole bunch of life experience, you know, and can remember his life pretty well, and has a lot of um, things he likes to enjoy to do. He has a lot of hobbies. Then listen. And if you like my videos enough, like, comment, subscribe. And if you really, really like my videos, my nigga, then send me some money to the Cash App. Capital SOULEE 0. Okay. Any amount is appreciative. Again, I'm not begging. You don't have to send no money, but if you want to, I would enjoy it. $5 is cool to me. Anyway, writing a novel can be the most fun, most enjoyable, most imaginary, most deep, most detailed, most complex, most annoying, headache inducing, feeling like you're not making enough progress thing in the world. Writing a novel, especially if you're like me who wants to write a novel series, and a person who endlessly creates characters and endlessly creates stories, and in their very endless complex stories, it can be one of the hardest things to possibly do. But it also can be one of the most rewarding things if it's something that you desire to do in your life. I have always had an active imagination. I have always wanted to create my own fantasy world, and I'm doing it. But it does take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress. And it also can be even more stress inducing when you have someone in the background who doesn't really understand your vision. So, with that, because it can come off as you being arrogant or douchey when you're trying to follow your dreams, and you pretty much tell people to leave you alone, let you follow your dreams, it can be considered you being an asshole or being a prick. But anybody who has ever written a book or who is writing a book right now understands how frustrating, yet rewarding, yet enjoyable it is to create your own story. Now, the biggest reasons why that stuff can be very stressful, you know, for one, if you're like me, you like to create deep worlds, meaning that your world building is through the roof. You world build constantly, all day, every day. Someone like myself, I world build continuously. I change things continuously. I have to remember a lot of things, and my characters are very unique. They have very unique powers. I have multiple power systems. I have multiple races. I probably have over 10,000 different races if we include humanoid type animals, if we're including chimeras, like mixed races of characters, like a fox cat or like a dog shark and things of that nature. I have like a limitless, endless, or mortal amount of characters. And to write a story on these characters takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's only me writing, and I'm the only person who cares about my story. Nobody else gives a shit about it, genuinely. Even people try to, but realistically, they don't give a fuck about it. You can sit there and explain it to people all day, but they're never. Even people who are writing their own novel don't really give a shit about my novel, and so it can be very frustrating to have no support and nobody who gives a shit, and to do it yourself. But I still do it and I still have fun doing it. I'm just saying it can be very draining. You get drained out more because you don't have the support, because there's nobody behind you saying you can do it. I believe in you. I put my trust in you. I'm the only one who puts the trust in myself. Now, of course, people are going to love my novel once it becomes big and it becomes a Netflix series or it becomes a 6 movie series, and they start seeing the characters in action because people have an obsession with colors and action and stories. And regardless of if there's a million people that don't like it, there's going to be a million people that do. It's always half and half. Everything is half and half. So, and that's why I like to go and look at how Oda does One Piece on the internet, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I have seen countless people trash One Piece. Countless people. They talk about how it's bad, it's horrible, the art is ugly, it's too long, it's too bloated, there's too many. All of this, that's the perspective that people will see, because the first perspective that people have is always negative. This is something I've realized in my 26 years of life. People's perspective always is negative. They're not going to look at your perspective from a positive light. It's actually kind of mind blowing. Like, most people, their first perspective is going to be negative. Even the people who like your story are still going to be like, I don't really like this. I don't really like that. That backstory was like a 5. I remember telling my friend, I had this white friend, I remember telling him the backstory of one of my characters. And it was like a deep, complex backstory. He was like, it's like a 7. I was like, really? Now, to give y'all perspective, the backstory was, I have a character who, my story is very inspired by One Piece. I'm always very honest about my inspiration. So I have these things called death candies, which are like devil fruits. And the way you get them is that you have to master lucid dreaming, and you have to go to a ancient candy shop that is ran by Death himself. And because Death in my story is actually retired, his son is actually the one that goes and gets the dead bodies and takes the spirits to the afterlife. Um, Death doesn't do that. His son does in my story. So you have to do that. You get the death candy, and then you have to sign a contract or whatever. Now, of course, for story reasons, it might not always be the case. It might be like you eat the candy, and they just understand. They get like a vision in their head of what, and I might change this. I might change it, because when you write stories, you sharpen it up, you change stuff to where it makes better sense. I might change it to where they get into their heads and they see Death in their heads, Death's son, and they decide if they do the contract, in their mind. So, just to make it quick, make it like 30 seconds, and then boom, they got the power. Um, but basically, the character was, he's a guy and he has these ancient phoenix powers. Um, Not ancient phoenix, I mean ancient dragon powers. He has, he ate the ancient ice candy, which allows you to transform into an ice dragon. And it gives you ice powers, and it actually gives you like time stopping powers. It's like the most strong ice power you can possibly have in my story. And basically, I told a story about how he had this ancient candy, and he had like five daughters, and one of the daughters died because somebody wanted to get the candy from him. And basically, the candy was supposed to be like he was going to go sell the candy to a person so they could get out of poverty. They basically were all in poverty. They all lived in like this village, and he was going to give them the candy basically, and they ended up killing his daughter anyway. And he basically he eats the candy, and he basically gets the powers. And a part of the story is he always eats vanilla ice cream because that was her favorite ice cream. And also, he creates like a igloo, and the igloo is like protected so nobody can ever mess with her dead body. And he literally turns a whole area from it being like it started out being like a summer land, and he turned it into literally like an ice land permanently. And every time he eats vanilla ice cream on her birthday, like every time it's her birthday, he eats vanilla ice cream in her honor. And that was, again, I'm not sure if I want to make that his like blood daughter or make that his foster daughter, because he has a couple of daughters that are his actual like blood daughters. And I'm not sure what I'm going to even put that into the story. I'm still thinking. And his character is so deep and complex. There are five versions of him running around in the universe, and they're all copies of him. But he doesn't even know this. Somebody like created these copies. They're like robots or something. Because they know about him because he has literally the most legendary death candy, like one of them. So of course they know about him. But yeah, he has the power to turn into like a legendary, beautiful ice dragon. It's inspired by Articuno from Pokemon, which is funny because you'd be like, "Then why is it an ice dragon?" But the three legendary uh, death candies are inspired by Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno, because the fire one turns you into like a phoenix, and then the electric one turns you into like an electric bird. I might change it though. I might make it like an electric something else, like an electric lion or something, just to make it a little less samey. But I get a lot of inspiration from my childhood, and I get a lot of inspiration from things that I enjoy, from different types of anime, from different types of movies, from different types of TV shows, from different types of cartoons. Like I said before, my biggest ones are Adventure Time, Pokemon, One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, all the extremely famous stuff. Harry Potter, like I get inspiration from all big famous stuff because my mind looks at it as if you have literally all of this in one story, then there's nothing you can complain about. If you got dragons, wizards, warlocks, freaking animal hybrids, it's also inspired by Hunter x Hunter. But if you have all of this all in one story, you can't complain. Like you have literally everything in one story. But it does take time to write all of this. It does take a lot of time to make it all make sense. And it takes a long time to write story arcs. And it really sucks because you can have the whole story in your head. My story is all in my head, but it still takes time to sit there and type it all out or write it all out. I think all together I probably have like 300 pages so far. Like if I take, because I write multiple ways. I'll write the stuff in a notebook and I'll write it online. I do that both at the same time. And I usually am writing two arcs simultaneously, at the same exact time, sometimes three arcs. And I get a lot of ideas all the time. And one thing I heard about Oda himself is that he literally burns himself out to write his story. He literally writes One Piece all day, all night, in the hospital bed. He sleeps at his desk and he only sleeps for like 3 hours. I'm trying to become that way. Now I'm gonna have to go to work again, because I'm an older dude. My mom don't like me sitting here working on my dreams too much and not having a job. So that is something that's gonna kind of get in the way. So I think my weekends are mostly gonna have to be spent, and any type of free time, just writing this stuff. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff to take in. But I do like it. I love the process of writing my stuff. I enjoy all the characters I've made. I enjoy all the different power systems I've made. Um, Cause my story gets complex, bro. It gets. Hold on, let me look for the. And over the years, it has changed tremendously in certain areas. Like there were times where I didn't know what characters I wanted as the main characters. That was a big issue, was finding the perfect balance for main characters. Because the problem with stories, right, is that sometimes people will either write main characters that aren't deep enough, or they'll write main characters that are too deep, or they'll write main characters who are too overpowered. But I also realized I wanted my main characters to have really cool, interesting, deep, complex powers. I didn't want them to have boring powers. Everybody wants the main characters to be pretty cool. Um, so that was one thing. It's funny. This is a notebook, one of the notebooks I use to write a lot of my character ideas and my world building and my character backstories and my characters' powers and power systems and whatnot. And it's funny because I remember I got this in college sitting on the top of a microwave. I don't know why somebody put it there, but they put the note on there and it said free. And I was like, well, shoot, okay. And I just took it because I thought it was like a really unique notebook. And it says, I need my space. I thought it was unique, so I just kept it. I'm one of those type of people. I like that type of stuff. It's just like, oh, cool, random notebook. And it's kind of unique looking, you know. Um, but yeah, it can be a very long process. It can also be, it's high effort, low reward in the sense of, yes, it's going to take a very long time. You're not going to get a whole bunch of money until you actually finish it and start bringing in some revenue. It starts bringing in that cash. And then it can be very taxing to sit on a computer and look at a computer screen all day to type, which is why I also have realized that I enjoy just having the notebook sitting there. So even if I'm not in the mood to be on the computer, I can sit there and write the whole story down in my notebook. It is just easier. You know what I'm saying? But if I keep doing it both ways, I get more work done. That's how I look at it. I'll be writing 5 arcs at the same time, and I'll be writing in the notebook doing another arc at the same time because I can't really think of a more efficient way of doing it besides writing as much as possible at one time and then going and revising it and reviewing it and seeing if I made some mistakes, seeing if I like the type of sentences and words and phrases that I gave my characters. Now, here's another thing too. Like I said, I take a lot of inspiration from places. That's how my mind works. So, for example, something I took from One Piece was every time a person dies in One Piece or is about to die, they have the most beautiful speech ever. So, my characters have that type of stuff. They have very beautiful speeches, they have very deep um, philosophies. Everybody's philosophy is different, everybody's personality is different, everybody's food cravings is different, everybody's clothing style is different. Everybody's tone is different. Everybody's eye color is as different as I could possibly make them. Some of them might have similar uh, eye colors because there's not. I mean, you can make thousands of different eye colors, but at the same time, it's like you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna get burned out making a lot of different eye colors. But I do have a lot of characters with a lot of differences to them, and I get so deep into their minds to see how they respond to different situations. You know, because I don't want them to be similar. I don't want their view of the world that I'm creating to be the same, which is why I give all these different viewpoints from different points of views from the characters. I was like, my main character right here, his point of view is different than this one. I don't like to get too deep into my main character though, because I don't want nobody stealing the idea of them. Even though it's like, even if they stole the idea, it's like as long as they kind of change it a little bit, it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, mean, there's already people who probably have similar powers, but I'll tell my main character's power. So one of his powers is basically he has the power of like what's it called? He has like the power of dreams. So he slowly gets the ability to literally bring out um, physical represent physical embodiments of his ideas, rules, and thoughts that he has. So, for example, you know how when we dream, we will have visuals in our head, like literally all your thoughts and ideas, everything you think of, literally has a visual to it when you fall asleep. So it could be like your depression literally becomes a creature that chases you in your dreams. It's like that. He can use that to his advantage. So, for example, there's a character in the story called Feelings. Feelings is a butler, and it's the physical embodiment of his feelings. And but the butler carries him and runs around and helps him. Um, and it gets deeper than that, but I don't want to get too deep into it. I don't want people knowing too much because if you know everything that's gonna happen, then you're just gonna be like this ain't really that fun. So I will always give like little stories, and I might even give y'all backstories to less important characters, but I'm not gonna tell you everything about the characters because I don't want you to know like half of the book. You know what I'm saying? You know how like previews to movies tell you too much, and it'd be like, damn, like I already know the whole movie now. You know, I don't want to give too much previews. You know, but the world is very vast and giant in my world. And think about it, it's inspired by so many different things. So of course it's gonna be huge. And it's funny because it's inspired by so much different things, but you low key ain't gonna really see a lot of my inspiration. Like you aren't gonna be like, hey, this is from this and this, because it's like my characters really ain't that simple. You know what I'm talking about? Even though if you ask me, I can literally tell you the inspirations, and you might think you know the inspirations, and it might be something completely different too. So it is what it is. But writing a story is most definitely fun. It's enjoyable because it's a passion of mine, but it can also be very taxing and very tiring. And it can be kind of a bummer when you don't really have nobody to talk to about it because people don't give a shit about it. But I love it, and I will always do it. It'll always be interesting. I am 100% a writer, and I know that there's going to be people who overanalyze it or say that I'm bad at writing, and I accept that. I accept the fact that there are going to be these critics, usually white critics, who are going to be like, this is bad, he uses too many cliches, this action fight was boring, this was boring, I didn't like this, I didn't like that. There's always going to be the people who sit there and pick apart every small little piece of the story, which I always think is kind of mind blowing that they'll do that. And then when they write their own story, it's worse than your story because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Because it's easy to criticize, it's easy to be like, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. But to make something actually good is hard. So to be like, this is right, and this is right, it's really hard to do. You know, and everything is literally a remix. Technically speaking, every story is just a parallel universe of another story. You know, even when I look at something like One Piece, right? One Piece, I can straight up see the inspirations. Like for example, Whole Cake Island is Candyland. It's literally Candyland, the board game. Like it's so obvious. It's not even funny how obvious it is. And I freaking still love it because that's crazy that somebody really made a manga and made Candyland and put it in there. Like that's just cool. You know, one manga I'm gonna start reading is Toriko because I've heard that the world of Toriko is like super big. Like just all these YouTubers that watch it, I've seen them literally talk about the world and talk about how basically the world of Toriko is how the Dark Continent would be if we actually got to see the Dark Continent in Hunter x Hunter, which gets me so hyped to read Toriko because I'm like, bro, I want to see the Dark Continent so bad. I want to see all the creatures and stuff in the Dark Continent. But when it comes to Hunter x Hunter, even though it's my favorite manga of all time, I think it's a 10 out of 10. And One Piece, I think, is a 10 out of 10, period, point blank. I don't care. And I think Bleach is a 10 out of 10. I don't care what nobody says. I enjoy those shows so damn much, and they're so rewatchable. Adventure Time is a 10 out of 10 because my whole philosophy is if you can watch it continuously multiple times and you're still not bored, you're still not irritated, it doesn't feel repetitive, then that means it's good. That's how I look at it, you know. And especially if it's very, what's the word? If it's very influential as well, you know. That's how people feel about Harry Potter. Like you watch it 1,000 times and it's just not boring. It's freaking interesting every single time. That's how I feel too. I think Harry Potter is a 10 out of 10 series. It is what it is. Harry Potter is just awesome. Like I've heard people say it's too childish. I'm like, bro, go die. I don't really do that though. But I'm just saying, it's like really like how the hell do you not like Harry Potter? A person saying they don't like Harry Potter blows my mind. I remember like a comedian basically saying that Harry Potter was Star Wars and that basically Harry Potter was just a worse Star Wars and the wands were basically just worse lightsabers. And I'm like, come on, bro. And that's mostly because of the hero's journey, which where's that at? I have that sitting, or maybe I don't. I have that book. Yeah, yeah, it's right here. Right, yeah. This is extremely good. I have both of the books actually. I have by Joseph Campbell. I have the hero's journey that everybody freaking talks about. Every freaking person who analyzes TV shows, you know, movies, anime, cartoons, they always, any type of media, video games, they always talk about the hero's journey and the cycle of the hero's journey because there's a cycle. Where is it at? Is it in here? They might not have a picture of it, but you can look it up on Google because there's basically a little cycle for the hero's journey. It's just a little circle and it tells you the cycle of how it goes. And it tells you, if I remember correctly, it's a hero and then they get a master and then they go and fight some evil and then they come back and it's like they're changed as a person. It's deeper than that, but that's what I can remember off the top of my head. Then there's the one that nobody talks about, A Hero with a Thousand Faces, which is an extremely good story too. I highly recommend reading this book. These two books, I think I paid $80 for both. I don't even see the prices on here. Where's the prices? Oh yeah, $20 for this one, and this one doesn't have a price on here. But I remember going to the store and buying both of these and it being like super expensive. I'm pretty sure it was like $40, $50, but I swear it was more than that. I think I bought two or three mangas with it too. Because I remember paying like $80. But anyway, those are some really good books. I highly recommend if you are writing novels, 100% go and get both of these books. Um, there's also other ones I have here. These ones are ones that I got from like Goodwill, but they're pretty good. Reading like a writer is pretty good, and then A Story is a Promise. It's pretty good. I'd say all four of those are extremely good reads, and I highly recommend you read them. And I would also say go watch a lot of anime, go watch a lot of movies, go watch a lot of TV shows, and get inspiration from everywhere. There is nothing wrong with inspiration because every great person who creates a novel, every author, every writer, every screenwriter gets inspiration from somewhere else because nothing is 100% original. It isn't. Look at a freaking Star Wars, for example. Star Wars was inspired by old westerns. It was inspired by old Japanese samurai movies. It was inspired by other sci-fi at the time. I can't remember the series, but there was a series that's so similar to Star Wars. It just doesn't have lightsabers, and Star Wars was also inspired by that. And it was also inspired by what is it? Flash Gordon, I believe is what it's called. I think it's Flash Gordon. It was also inspired by that. Quentin Tarantino movies. All his movies are dead ass. What I just said is basically what all his movies are. Kill Bill, based on anime, 100%. I mean, it's literally about assassins, and it even has anime scenes in it. So it lets you pretty much know that it's inspired by that. It's inspired by Western because even the styles of music he uses sound very Western esque. Um, and he freaking loves westerns. I mean, The Hateful Eight, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. That movie is a 10 out of 10. I don't care what nobody says. For you to keep me entertained by these characters that all are staying in one area, they're literally just sitting in a bar pretty much the whole movie, and to keep me entertained for 2.5 hours with people who are just sitting in a bar is crazy because that's pretty much the whole movie. You know, it starts out with them going through snow and picking up random people, but they go into a freaking bar and basically they're in the bar the whole time and it's a murder mystery, which is freaking crazy to me. It's like phenomenal. I highly recommend you watch The Hateful Eight. I highly recommend you watch videos on Quentin Tarantino because he knows how to write him some interesting ass movies by mixing all the different movies that he likes and throwing it together and creating something new. And all the greatest writers do that. Oda did it for freaking One Piece. And One Piece has so many inspirations. Usopp. Usopp is a combination of Pinocchio and The Boy Who Cried Wolf. That's crazy. Like, what even made you think to fuse those together? You know what I'm saying? Zoro is inspired by Zoro. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you have like Water 7, which is inspired by, I can't remember what the city was. Um, but there's like that city where there's literally water everywhere. I can't remember what it's called. Um, you know, all of the characters are inspired by something. And a lot of them are actually inspired by real pirates in history, too, which is pretty crazy. A lot of the pirates are inspired by actual pirates that apparently lived back in the day. Their names are even similar, you know. But since he makes his characters slightly different, you can't be like, oh, he's just copying. Can't really say that because all his characters are slightly different. Um, and I can tell that Oda is a very big, giant history buff. Like I can tell that he loves history. Um, he probably read a history book before he wrote One Piece, you know. And of course, he talks about the little Viking anime that he liked, and you know, he talks about not wanting to have a normal job. And I feel him on that. Like nobody wants to just have a 9 to 5 when you can do your passions and get really big with that. Um, but it's a process. It's a long process, a long process. And you have to get obsessed with it and you have to do it on your own and be okay with being alone with just you doing it. And you have to zone out the background noise. You have to zone everybody out in the background. Don't be like, oh, this person made me irritated, so I'm not gonna work today. You can't do that. You gotta just burn yourself out. Feel the uncomfortable emotions, feel the stress, feel the annoyance. You know, whatever feeling you're feeling, just feel it and just follow your dreams regardless. That's how it is. You gotta burn yourself out pretty much. But I would say this: if writing novels is not for the weak-hearted, it's not for people who give up easily, and it's not for people who aren't creative. Okay, because I can tell you all this, and we'll talk about this too. There are a lot of people who think they can write a novel, right? But then their novel turns out to kind of just be a Lord of the Rings ripoff, but it doesn't have the deepness that Lord of the Rings had. The thing about Lord of the Rings is Lord of the Rings is extremely deep. It has its own Bible to it. Okay, you're not competing with Lord of the Rings just because you write like a medieval story with characters that are like really similar to Lord of the Rings. And I would honestly say, don't write something that's similar to Lord of the Rings. Write something that's extremely unique that nobody else has written. And I've realized a lot of people's imagination is not that deep because a lot of people write a very straightforward copy of something else. Meaning, like I said before, they'll write a Lord of the Rings ripoff or like a Harry Potter ripoff, and it's like nobody wants to watch a regurgitated ripoff of something that they could watch that's better. You know, nobody wants to watch something about wizards if I could just watch Harry Potter, which is 10 times better. Nobody wants to watch something that's like Lord of the Rings when I could just go watch Lord of the Rings and it's literally better People like uniqueness, you know. So you have to write something that can be inspired by all the different things you love, but is unique. Is new in the sense of you fuse so much stuff together, it feels new. You know, you got so much inspirations, it feels new. One Piece, no other anime feels like One Piece. No other anime feels like Hunter x Hunter. No other anime feels like Yu Yu Hakusho. That's what you want. You want your work to feel like it's original, even if you're using stuff that's already been made in the past. You hear what I'm saying? You want it to be as unique as possible. Dragon Ball Z is hella unique. Even though, yes, there have been buff dudes who fought in space before. Yes, there have been buff dudes who could shoot lasers already before. But Dragon Ball Z is unique in its way of how it shows and tells its story. What other story do you know where someone, the main character, starts out as a little monkey boy, and then it turns out he's not a little monkey boy, he's actually a freaking alien monkey boy from a different planet called the Saiyans, and they have an ability where they can turn golden and they can turn into giant apes when they see the moon. You, what other story is like that? No other story is that unique. You know, Dragon Ball is so unique that even when the story is bad, people still like it because of the uniqueness of it. You know, I'm talking more about Dragon Ball Super than Dragon Ball Z because I think Dragon Ball Z is freaking amazing. Because I've had like I haven't had arguments, but I have heard people talk about the Buu Saga being written poorly. But let me tell you something about the Buu Saga. The Buu Saga is so freaking interesting to the point where it doesn't matter if it's written good because it's so freaking interesting. There's so much good moments in the Buu Saga. You're not going to be sitting there like, oh, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. No, because for one, Toriyama freestyles his story. When you have people who freestyle their story, there's going to be inconsistencies. I remember Stephen King talking about how he freestyles a lot of his stories and he kind of lets his characters create the stories for him. I remember watching that in an interview. I actually agree with his style to a certain degree. I feel like you should basically do everything. Meaning you should map out your world, plan out your world, write your world as much as you possibly can, have little outlines of what you want. But at the same time, sometimes you can freestyle your story in between the story arcs that you created. Meaning, and I'm pretty sure Oda does all of this stuff. I feel like that's what he does. I feel like with Oda, he freestyles some stuff, he has some stuff planned out, and then he creates stuff like right on the spot as well. I feel like he does all of that, and then it somehow just works for him. And I feel like he also changes his mind about a lot of characters as well. Because my whole thing is you want to have all of the stuff stacked for you, not against you. So it's better to outline everything and have the world created, even if you change your mind later on. Because as humans, we are walking contradictions. As humans, we're hypocrites. As humans, we will change our mind 1,000 times. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've had a character that I created, and I'm like, I think this would be better for them. Or, let me change the backstory. Let me change the name. Let me change the style of how they fight. Let me make a character that's just like them, but is a little different. You know, you're gonna do that type of stuff. That's how it is when you write a story. You know, you're gonna think about all these different things that affect the story. You know, and I'm the type I break down a story to like the molecular structure. Molecular? Forget I said that. I don't even know how to say it. But I break a story all the way down as much as you can break it. And I watch so many different shows because I want to see what in my story, what can my characters do to manipulate your emotions to where you like what you're watching. Whether it's them making you about to shed a bunch of tears, whether it's them doing something that's so freaking badass that makes you think this is the coolest story ever, or the story being so freaking unpredictable to the point where it's like, ooh, this is so interesting. What's going to happen next? Ooh, things are getting spicy. You know what I'm saying? And I take inspiration from different things because I notice different things have different appeals to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, I personally feel like the reason why so many people like Hunter x Hunter, at least the reason I like Hunter x Hunter, is because Hunter x Hunter is very unpredictable. You do not know how the story is going to go by just watching the first couple of episodes. Now, I've heard some people say that they don't even like the Hunter exams, which is crazy to me because the Hunter exams inspired the tuning exams, and y'all freaking love the tuning exams. Oh God, I don't know how y'all can think that the Hunter exams is boring, but the tuning exams is amazing. Especially when it's inspired by it. But whatever the case may be, Hunter x Hunter has inspired a whole lot of shows. Hell's Paradise, I know Hell's Paradise was inspired by Hunter x Hunter. Like real talk. And that doesn't mean it's bad. I love Hell's Paradise too. Freaking Tower of God, that little part where they're out there and there's freaking they're out there in that little forest on one of the levels, one of the very first um, panels of the manhwa. They're out there in like the jungle, like hunting and finding a team to be with. So similar. Infinity Train and Tower of God feel pretty similar. I think the person who created Infinity Train probably got their idea from Tower of God because they feel like they could be set in the same universe. But that doesn't mean that that's um, a bad thing. And I can also be 100% wrong. They could not even know each other or even know that the other person exists. The person who made Infinity Train probably don't even know Tower of God, never even heard of it. But you can still feel like there's that inspiration there. Um, but I could also be 100% wrong, like I said. But the bottom line is writing, there's so many different ways you can be a good writer. It's actually kind of mind blowing. Um, but I would say putting the max amount of effort into your writing will help you tremendously, regardless. There are going to be some people who love your writing, even if there are people who say that it's atrocious, even if there's people who say it don't make sense, even if there's people who say it's too convoluted, you talk about too much stuff, you get into too much detail, you're telling too much stories, you're telling too many different stories, there's too many different points of views. Even if there's the people that get confused by it, there's going to be those people who are like, damn, this story is freaking fantastic. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the world building. I love the tone that the characters have. I love how the characters all have their own point of view. I love that the characters have their own families and rivals and enemies and pets and whatever else you can think of. They have their own dreams, etc., etc. Because that's how deep I get. I give my characters all different dreams. They dream about different stuff. Um, because there's so much you can add to a story. It's actually kind of mind blowing how deep you can really make a story. I remember watching one of my favorite YouTubers and him talking about this story that he wrote. I really wanted to read it, but I can't find it nowhere, which makes me annoyed. Um, but yeah, it's a lot that goes into creating stories. But it can be fun. I do love writing. I do love creating different stories. And you're gonna have people who have different rules for writing their stories. You're gonna see all these YouTubers, and all these different YouTubers are gonna tell you you should write this way or you should write that way. But let me tell you a secret. Write how you want to write. Give yourself the freedom to fuck up. Give yourself the freedom to do whatever you want in your story. Because a story that you want to write is better than a story where you're trying to force yourself to write that you think people are going to like more than the story that you want to write that you would enjoy. You have to write a story that you will enjoy, and then people who are similar to you and who are pretty close to how you are will like it. That's one thing I've noticed myself. Like, don't write a story because you're like, oh, I want to make $1 million. Write a story because you enjoy it, because you have the damn story in your head and you just want to put it somewhere. God damn it. And don't put too many expectations on yourself. Expectations create problems, in my personal opinion. Too many rules can create problems when you're writing a novel. It just can create way too much. You're like, oh well, I don't want to do this, and it's okay to have cliches. Okay, it's okay to have cliches. It's okay to write a relationship and not really know how to write a relationship because what is the basis of a relationship on some real shit? Everybody has their own definition of a relationship, of a sex partner, of everything. Everybody has their own definition of everything. So there is no right or wrong way to write something, even though people will tell you it's the wrong way. They don't know because people don't know until they know. Do you get what I'm saying? So a person can tell you this is the wrong way to write, and then you write it the way that they said is wrong, and then you become a millionaire. You get what I'm saying? It's like you gotta take people's advice with a grain of salt because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They do know from their point of view, but their point of view might be wrong. But at the same time, what can you define as wrong? You get what I'm saying? And at the same time as well, it might be wrong to them. They might just not like it. But you might find 7 billion people who love it. You get big, then you talk to them, and you're like, well, do you like it now? And they're still like, nah, I don't like it. I still think you should have wrote it the way I said. And the way, if you would have wrote it how they said, you might still would have got big, or you might have not got big. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's like you got to just write it the way you want. If you have a screenplay, a TV show that you want to write, a manga you want to write what you want to write. Don't listen to all the damn critics because they're going to tell you a bunch of nonsense. You're going to end up believing it, or you're going to be stagnant and keep staying in the same area for too long because you're going to keep revising this little area when you can keep making a deep, detailed story that gets more and more complex and more enjoyable. Because for me, I want my story to low key be endless. I want to be able to write it forever. And even if my main character, even if I get like tired of using him, I got so many characters I can write a whole freaking series, and y'all will just love the whole series. You know, it is what it is. And like I said before, a lot of writers have different ways that they write. Okay, some people write their stories like Star Wars. They write it backwards. Some people write it forwards. Some people write the whole ending. Some people write the beginning after the end. Some people write the middle first. Um, I can tell you, I'm kind of like George Lucas, where I'd be kind of all over the place with mine. Like I'd be like I'll write like the ending. Like right now, I'm kind of in the end game arc right now, even though I haven't. I kind of stopped writing the beginning because I was like, bro, I want some. I want to be in the interesting parts. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on how your mind works. Because how my mind works, my mind will tell me you should write about this arc right now, and then sometimes my mind's like you should write about this arc right now. You know, and then sometimes my mind is like you should go back and write the beginning, get all that together. Um, because that's just how my mind works. And then my mind will be like, okay, you should make 30 new characters. Like that's like people's minds are just different. Some people just straightforward all the way through their stories good, boom, they're done. Some people write unpredictable, boom, they're done. Some people write an extremely detailed story where they have to tell you every single thing that happens in the story. Some people can tell you the most beautiful story in a shorter amount of time. And they can do it in like 100 pages. Some people need 40,000 pages to tell you the most beautiful story. And you might even read the most beautiful story, and in your mind, it wasn't beautiful at all. You see what I'm saying? Because our minds are so different. They're similar, but they're so different from one another. You might be like, nah, I don't really like this story that much. I ain't really feeling it, even though it's an extremely good story. It just is what it is. It's like I said, like people will say that One Piece is like the worst story ever. And then there's people who are like, it's the best story ever. In my opinion, I think it is the best story ever because this man has put so much effort into the story and he has so many interesting different types of story arcs. How can you not think it's good? That's how I look at it. I'm like, if somebody puts max effort into something, it has to be a 10 out of 10. You know, like let's look at like okay, somebody saying, for example, Neon Genesis Evangelion is better than One Piece. To me, that would be some bullshit because I'm like, Neon Genesis Evangelion is extremely flat and doesn't really have any deep meaning to it, but people will create deep meaning for it. That's something that's crazy too. As an individual, you might think that your story is not that deep, right? You might be like, man, this is too surface level. People will make it deeper for you. That's why I be saying, no matter what, put your story idea, your TV show idea, your screenplay, your movie idea, put that out there. Create your movie, create your TV show, create your anime, create your manga, create your comic book, create it. Because even if you think it's bland, there's still going to be people who think it's super duper deep and complex and will analyze every little part of it and think it's the most beautiful crap in the world. I'm telling you. But at the same time, you can have the reverse. You can have people like, for example, people will say that Neon Genesis Evangelion is hella deep, but then there are people who say One Piece isn't deep. It's hella surface level. It's just long. I've heard people say both of these opinions, and they both blow my mind. So it is what it is. Like people are gonna like what they like. They're gonna dislike, what they don't like. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So, but I still would say just keep pushing in whatever you want. Um, it is what it is. Whatever you desire to do, just do it because you will have fans. Fans are going to be there. You're going to find them. It might take a little longer, but that's why you also got to put yourself out there, like as an individual as well. So You know, it is what it is. You guys, love y'all. Hope y'all have a good one. If you enjoy this, leave comments. I will always respond to comments. I will talk to you in comments. I might even make videos on your comments. If you have any questions, ask any questions. Um, and I enjoy talking. So, like I said, I will always hit you up and talk to you. And if you need somebody to talk to, hit me up on Instagram. My name is the same thing as it is on YouTube on Instagram. And you know, if there's you're going through any depression, any sadness, anything like that, you need a listening ear, you come talk to me. I will help you with your depression, your sadness, your confidence. I will. If you need help getting any women, I can help you get women. I can help you with all this stuff. Trust me, I know. I've analyzed all this stuff, and I've practiced stuff so much to the point where it's like I know that I'm at least about 80% right. And if I'm not right, I might be wrong, and it is what it is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being wrong, but I'll try to help you as best as I can. It is what it is, but I hope you guys enjoy this video. Peace and blessings.